Good? Okay. All right. All right, good evening, everyone. This is the Town of Star Valley Ranch Planning Commission meeting on Wednesday, March 11th at 5:31 PM. We do have a quorum of commissioners in attendance. Let the record also reflect we have Town Administrator Aiken, Town Clerk Hurd, and Town Building Official Kazier in attendance. This evening, in addition to doing the usual video live stream of our meeting, we sent out a Zoom link for anyone that wanted to participate remotely. So we're doing that this evening too. We have a few people on. We wanted to start doing that now since we intend to, for the public hearing before the Planning Commission, provide a Zoom link so that folks that are on Zoom can do public comment as well. And we'll do the same thing for the Town Council. So we thought it'd be good to take that for a test drive in advance of the actual public hearing when that comes up later or next month. So, okay, first item on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. Could I get a motion for that? It's been moved by Commissioner Sommerfeld. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Naumoff. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good. All right. The next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the February 25th meeting. Were there any questions, comments, corrections to those? Should have received them. Okay. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes from the February 25th Planning Commission meeting?
So moved.
It's been moved by Commissioner Albers. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Stewart. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, let's move on to agenda items. We have a couple of plat amendments on the agenda. These are both from the same property owner who has 4 lots, and they would like to combine lots 55 and 56 into one lot, and then also combine lots 57 and 58 into one lot. And everybody should have received the materials on this one, the application. Are there any questions from the commission about this application? I'm glad Scott's here, because I did have a question. So the intent on this is the property owner, this is plat 9, intends to build a single-family house and a garage on one of the lots, and then just a single-family house on the other combined lots?
Yeah, the first 2 lots would just be a garage with a living space. So it'd be 2 separate lots, basically.
Mm-hmm.
One with a house, one with a garage and living space.
Can we do that in our code?
Well, you got, it's 2 separate lots combined, right? So you don't have one dwelling space per lot. So that allows you to have the minimum of the square footage, right, which is 1,200 living space in that garage, which that's where they're gonna be living. That will be their primary residence. So
I guess because the way it's worded on here, it says
we can't deny,
single residential home with a garage below it.
the wording on that's not right.
Yeah, and then the other application just says future residential home.
Which would be the other 2 lots that are amended,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be a single-family residence on that house. So basically, it'd be 2 separate addresses.
Okay, and so it's 2 separate houses.
That's
One
correct.
is just gonna, okay. Yeah, I think the wording threw me off on here. Did any of the commissioners have questions on this one? After looking at everything. And so I think tonight, Jamie, are we just agreeing to move these ones forward?
Yeah,
In the
that we can
process?
send letters out.
Okay. Any questions on that? I'm just doing agenda item A and B together since they are both the same property owners. Everyone's good? Okay. We don't need a motion on those, but we'll go ahead and let those continue forward. And for the public, as this goes through the process, we will have a public comment period, because once the letters go out, we'll have the opportunity for comments to come in and then to talk about those, so, okay? All right, the next item on the agenda is the Sunrise Mountain Estates rezone. And previously I sent out a write-up that was provided from the Sunrise Mountain Estates Homeowners Association. And this is their request to change their zoning, which is currently planned residential development planned residential development to single-family residential, which would conform to what the rest of the town is. And we've talked a little bit about this. So I just wanted to have the opportunity to bring it up this evening, see if anybody had any questions about it. We were talking internally at Town Hall about the process for this, and per our ordinances, the Planning Commission can initiate a rezone. So in this instance, that's actually the town clerk and I were the ones that started talking about this months ago, looking at the zoning map and realizing that this subdivision was still planned residential development instead of single-family residential. So unless there's any objections from the Planning Commission, we'd like to go ahead and get the process started, get the paperwork going, and start moving it along, because it does take a little while to get done.
Are we going to ask or talk with all of the owners because it's a town-initiated
Mhm.
rezone?
Yes.
So we'll specifically
We'll
contact
have
all
to
of
get,
them?
but there's 9 lots, correct? Yeah, so we would have to
7
contact all
owners,
of
9
them
lots.
and work with their homeowners association to go ahead and get the okay to do that. So we want to at least get that part of the process going. If there's objections, then I guess we'll kind of stand down on it. I don't know why there would be at this point, but,
I really have no reason to expect there would be.
okay. You never
I
know.
think this is what everybody has thought all along anyway.
Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and get going with the paperwork and getting, contacting the rest of your property owners and then take it from there. I know we've had it on the agenda for 1 or 2 meetings now, and I was kind of pushing it to a little bit later in the year, but there's no reason to delay. So let's at least find out if the rest of the homeowners are in agreement about this. Okay, any other questions on Sunrise Mountain rezone? Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Mountain Estates annexation. And as far as updates, we are still waiting on a draft annexation agreement. Actually, we got some comments back on it today, late today, so we haven't had a chance to even look at those and send them out to everyone. We did also receive, and I did send that to the commission late yesterday, a letter from Surveyor Sherville, and I see Marlo Sherville is here this evening. And it was regarding the conversation we've been having about the density of the MR2 townhome area of the proposed subdivision layout. And I know in past meetings, we've talked about the town looking at our ordinances and but our interpretation was that that is too dense. Doesn't meet our ordinances. There are some conflicts in our ordinances between the zoning chapter and the subdivision chapter, which is what the subject of Mr. Sherville's letter was. So I don't know if the commissioners had a chance to go through it or not last night. And Mr. Sherville, I don't know if you wanted to make any comments about the letter.
Be glad to answer any questions, or
Okay.
I'll go through the letter if you like.
Okay.
What would you like?
Actually, do you mind just kind of going through the letter? So that way the members of the public that are here too can kind of get an understanding of where you're coming from.
Do you each have copies? I didn't bring copies for everybody. I probably should have.
I got electronic copies.
But I have my own. So, as we look, the density question has come up as to whether Mountain Estates would meet the requested zone. I believe the annexation is requesting an MR2. And so if you read, basically my letter says this, is that you have 2 different chapters to talk about, refer to zoning. One is the zoning chapter, 154, and the other is one called subdivision, which is 152. And it seems to regulate new subdivisions. In it indicates, and I think that's the number that everybody's been looking at. If you look at that 152.21, which is where the density chapter refers you to, it talks about a maximum of 4 dwelling units per acre, which I think everybody has been focused on. But it's at odds with the provision of the zoning in MR1 and MR2, which is chapter 154. If you look at chapter 154, and let me point one thing out in chapter 152, right at the beginning of that, under subdivision standards, it regulates the new, and it says, the stated purpose of this chapter is that all improvements located on plan which is subdivided be designed and constructed in compliance with the following laws, rules, and regulations and standards. These are quoting from your ordinances. Then there follows a list of regulations and standards. One of those important parts of that listing of regulations and standards is specific reference to chapter 154. So the way I read this, and this is, I am not your attorney, I'm not anybody's attorney, and this is the way I read. I've been reading rules like this for a good number of years. My understanding would be that if there is a conflict, 154 would override because it was called to be, or the subdivision rule is called to be subject to, or specific to that. So you can use the word, I would say that the zoning chapter trumps 152 if there's a conflict. That's been my understanding. So if you go to 154, down in my letter, 154 talks about MR, let's talk about MR1 first, because there's kind of a comparison there. At 154.160, which is your zone MR1, it states that the purpose of this is to reserve appropriately located areas for a mixture of 1 and 2 family residential dwellings, and to provide 1 and 2 family residential areas. Therefore, in the MR1 zone, you couldn't have any more than 2 units on a single lot, regardless of lot size. But there is a conflict in that you may want to look at, because I think it allows something more than 1 or 2 units, and I can pull that up. But that's not the discussion for tonight. In chapter 154.025, it outlines the expectations of the MR2 zone. And it's to be units in greater density, served by enhanced water treatment and community treatment systems, open spaces, common ground, etc. So, and it's supposed to be more dense than your MR1 is what the purpose stands for, or states. In 154.180, it states that the purpose of the zone is to allow for higher population densities than MR1 and to provide areas for a mix of residential buildings. So you would expect MR2 to be more dense than MR1, I think is what that is all saying. In 154.181, it indicates the types of uses or allowed uses in an MR2 zone, which is multi-story, multi-family units are allowed, notably apartments. It lists apartments from 2 to 12 units. It's quite a few apartments. Townhouses, which is what we're looking at in Mountain Estates, and it indicates that residential with no more than 4 housing units per building. Then in 154.183, it outlines the minimum building footprint in various sizes. And then in 183B1, it indicates that the minimum lot size is 15,000 square feet. So my interpretation of that is you could have a fourplex, 4 units in one building on a 15,000 square foot pad or lot. And that would be, my calculations are right, Mountain Estates would be about half that dense. We're at
120,000.
Yeah, we're at about 8 acres, a little over 8 acres for just the townhouse portion that's going to be an MR2. We have 52 units. That would give us a 6.4 units per acre. If you were to do the math on the 4 units per 15,000 square feet and apply that to our 8 acres, we would be able to have 94 units. So we're approximately half what the zoning rule would allow. And just a little background on this design. A number of years ago, this was approved through the preliminary master plan concept was approved about 2010.
Mhm.
And then we came back with the county in the last year and have an approved master plan and phasing schedule of major subdivision. And as we looked at that, we actually lowered the density that we originally had because we needed to have room for buildings, parking, septic. You got to have a replacement field area, guest parking, snow storage, all of those impacts. And so it was redesigned, and the units in the townhouses were reduced from what we originally had talked to the county about. Because it has to make sense on the ground, everything has to fit. The other thing about a development, and two things that I might mention that I've talked about recently, a lot of worry sometimes happens because people think that, that's a lot of units, man, that's gonna be a lot of traffic. And it is, don't disagree with that, but it's never happened overnight. It usually takes time, and a lot of it depends on the market. And let me give you some examples. One of them is this town of Star Valley Ranch. Somewhere in the late 70s, first plats were going, and I believe there was, and I'm going to use approximate numbers and correct me, you may know these better than I do. There were about 2,000 lots created in Star Valley Ranch. And the last I looked, I think you're about a 50%, maybe a little over a 50% build out.
Actually 60.
60, thank you. I didn't go find the exact numbers on that. So that's over about a 50-year period. Another development down in Afton, you may or may not be familiar with 7th, 8th, and 9th, down by the cemetery. It's called the Glen Kennington Edition. It was around in the 80s, and the last house got built in that probably right around the turn of the century, around 2000 or so. Again, about 20 odd years. Another development, and I was speaking to Afton, and so some of these are in Afton, but it kind of indicates how growth happens. A development by the name of Rockbridge in the Afton community was developed in 2005, and it's 2025 now, approximately 20 years later, and it's not quite 50% built out. And when I talk about build out, that's taking, not that the lots aren't sold, but homes have not been built and traffic hasn't arisen. The last one that the town of Afton did was a 43 lot development about 3 years ago called Honeybee Meadows. And there are 14 homes in that now, so that's about not quite a 20% in 3 years. And maybe it's happening a little quicker, I don't know. I remember Rockbridge did really well from 05 to 10, and then all of a sudden, if you all remember about 2010, we had a downturn in the economy throughout the nation. And that developer has indicated to me that over those 13 years, they sold 6 lots, whereas the first 3 to 5 years, they'd sold 86. So lots of things can happen depending on how our, what's going to happen in our nation, what's going to happen in Star Valley. And so I just point that out because I think it's important to remember that these things don't happen overnight. The other important part is a development has to make sense to make the risk. There's a lot of dollars spent in any development, put in the ground for water and sewer and roads and electric, telecommunications today. And so it has to make sense, and that's the design that we have now with Mountain Estates. Fits all that criteria. We downsized it so it fit the impacts, and it still made sense. So with that said, I really think you may want something different in your ordinances. Not saying that would be something you need to take up and do. The current read of your ordinances, I think, we're fitting the density of the MR2. And I was interested, you were talking about rezoning Sunrise. It seems like there was a specific reason that we had a PUD zone there, but I'm forgetting what it is. Got an old mind, and I haven't been through. haven't gone back through notes on that one, and so, but obviously, if the community would like to do that, that's what those applications are for, and it can be brought into similar to the rest of the town.
So,
My other, just last thought, Mayor, is I don't know that you've dealt with an MR1 or MR2 in this town from the beginning
Nope.
that I'm aware of.
not that any of us are aware of.
It's mostly been R1, and so it is somewhat new, although if you look at, and my remembrance is that the original ordinances in Alpine, Star Valley Ranch, and Afton were prepared somewhat at the same time and by the same firm. Afton's they have an R1 and an R2 and an R3 zone, kind of similar to yours. Your R1 is fairly similar to theirs. They have a minimum lot size of about 13,000 square feet. Yours is, depending on which one you want to read, it's either a quarter of an acre or a half acre. They have an MR2, or not an MR2, but an R2, which is a duplex, kind of like your MR1. And then they have an R3 that's a multifamily, which is 3 or more, similar to your MR2. And so, and there, it just so happens that their fourplexes are allowed on 15,000 square feet. It's not an uncommon size or density in Star Valley or anywhere else in the country, I think. So with that, if I can answer any questions, I'd be glad to. Those are my thoughts.
I do have a couple. So I think on the ordinance, I mean, I certainly, after going through your letter, we probably have been focused more on the chapter 152, the subdivision. But I guess I would put forward that, I don't know necessarily that I agree that 154 trumps 152, and I think it would depend on the intent of the planning commission and the intent of the town council on what those ordinances should say. That certainly doesn't mean that we don't need to make a correction one way or the other, because they shouldn't be opposed to each other, or at least in disagreement.
It's hard to have conflicts in
Yes.
regulations because
Yes.
you don't know how to read them.
We
And
seem to
So-
find them fairly regularly, and then we try to fix them, which, so
not
I,
uncommon in this town as well as any other
so
community.
currently with the Mountain Estates, I know that, you know, it's the conditionally approved master plan with the county.
Correct.
And I believe there are subdivision, I don't know if they're calling them subdivision or phasing agreements. What are they?
So
Subdivision
basically, the way the
development
county handles this right now, it's, they do a preliminary plat, master plan, and a phase if you want to develop in phases and not all at once, which is really the only sensible way in a market like we have right now, in my opinion. So the county, you go through and review the whole project with its total build out and density, sewer studies, water studies, chapter 23 from DEQ, look at the traffic, all of those criteria, similar to what your subdivision ordinance talks about. And that's what we've gone through with the county. And then they approve the phases by, that's when they have their development agreement. They call them a phase agreement now. So if we're doing it in phases, and there's a number of phases proposed here, our best guess, you know, phasing is an interesting animal. I've always felt like my crystal ball sees pretty darkly. And you don't know what the market's going to do. And so you tend to do it in phases. And phases is kind of flexible. You might do 2 phases at once or split 1 in half depending on marketability, and because the worst thing a developer can do is put too much money in the ground and it doesn't sell. All of a sudden, it doesn't work unless you got a big treasure chest and you can wait out the market. So, in this case, the county will have, as we do a phase, and there are phases in the townhouses and phases in the single lots. So we have 3 phases agreed to. One is the existing fourplex, and then the other one is the next fourplex to be built, which I believe has a building permit to go forward in the county. And then it's the first about 11 lots. And I think it shows here on the plat if you want to see that. And I did bring extra copies if yours were too small. Mine aren't much bigger, but they are a little bigger. Anyway, so the county has a development agreement with each phase. here's the improvements you have to do during that phase, the roads, the water. Fire flows are important in this particular mixed-use area. Asphalt roads, county does require some minimum utilities. They require electric and telecommunications. And so that's all. The developer and the county commissioners agree that if the improvements are put in, then they'll sign a plat and you can start selling lots. So the improvements have to be in first. And I haven't kept up with yours. It used to be you had a bonding allowance as well as putting the improvements in. Am I incorrect in that? I did not read that part of the rules.
I believe
A
that's,
performance bond.
yes, yes.
Most of the communities do. The county has gone away from that,
Mhm.
but each of the communities still have that in place. So if you, in that particular case, you would be able to put up a performance bond. Typically, it's 120 to 130% of engineer's estimate of the improvements.
Mhm.
You can go ahead then file the plat and start conveying lots, selling lots, and putting in the improvements.
So on with the first three agreements with the county, though, there hasn't been any plat recorded yet, is that
I don't
correct?
believe they're recorded yet, no. I don't think all the, we were kind of in the winter.
Mhm.
I think there's some
And so
paving
the-
left to do, right, Dirk?
Will the county be recording those first three phases, though, platting it and recording it? Or is it not until after it's all done?
Yeah, in the county, again, the developer, Mr. Eisen, will have to finish the improvements. They would then be inspected by the county. And once the county agrees that everything's in the way it should be, then they would go ahead and sign the plat at a commissioner's meeting and file it in the courthouse, ready for future closings.
Okay.
In the county, a developer can enter into agreements. Once he has a preliminary plat, he can enter into sales agreements
Mhm.
at that time, but obviously you can't close until you get a plat recorded.
Right, okay.
So in this case, I think what's holding up is spring, although maybe we had spring for a long time, I don't know.
Seems
Certainly
like
a
it.
different spring than I've experienced, but anyway, we're waiting for the proper weather to come around so we can finish those improvements on those first three.
Okay. The reason I was asking is, again, if we go back to the density, since not all of the townhomes are part of the first three
Correct, they're
agreements. They're only part of, 8 units in the first two. That,
Correct.
you know, at least from the planning commission perspective, or from my perspective, there's potential room for change if that was something that was of interest to the town. And again, we haven't even talked about this as a town council since we just got your letter yesterday, and you were gonna be here today, but I just wanted to make sure we understood where things currently stood, and then the realm of the possible going forward, I guess, even despite.
Everything's possible, just recognize we have approval in the county and can develop there.
Mhm.
When I was involved in this process 5 or 6 years
Right.
ago, I was surprised then that the town didn't take the opportunity to annex and take control of that situation. I
Right.
would still be surprised. To me, it's in your best interest, but that's only my personal observation.
Well,
Certainly-
no, and that's one of the things we've been trying to make sure everyone understands is that if this annexation is ultimately not approved by the town council, the plan you have with the county is what your
We're
developer will
moving
move
forward with
forward
that, yep, it's in process.
Right, and it's already in process. so.
Exactly.
Um,
We still think it makes sense, which is why this application's come before you again.
And I mean,
Hopefully, it's not 3 strikes and you're out, then we get something in 2. But I still think this is a really, I mean, again, my opinion doesn't mean a lot, but I think this is a good move by the town to be able to annex this. I think there's gonna be benefits both ways in a lot of areas.
I mean, other than the townhome portion, to me, again, the lots are very similar in size to what we currently have in town that are spread out in different places, so.
Yeah, you have anywhere from 1/3 to a 1/2 acre majority of lots. There are some larger
Yeah.
in some of the plats, if I recall right.
That's, I think because I did this math once after, I think one of the meetings with the county planning and development when I think it was said that our lots were like less than half an acre, which is not true. I think the average is 0.65
Yeah,
or
I
something.
think if you look at an average, it's mostly plats 4 and 5. I think
That
they
are
were
smaller
smaller, they were
ones,
more
yeah.
like a third.
Yeah,
And the ones up here in the main body of the
or
town
larger.
are
in
more
some
like half
places.
acres is
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah,
remembering.
or an acre. up
There
to-
are some larger ones too, I think.
Right. So did the commissioners, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but this is your opportunity to ask any questions of the surveyor, since he's.
And let me introduce, I did bring David Kennington with Sunrise, if anybody has sewer and water questions and traffic. They were the ones that conducted the Chapter 23 studies with
Right.
DEQ. And then obviously Dirk is here as a developer to answer questions.
Okay. And we've got all the information from the county as far as the studies and the wastewater study, and
Great.
we've kind of been through that. I think the biggest concern a lot of, well, the commission has, and a lot of the council and the residents, has to do with the well currently that's there, and what's gonna happen with that as far as the wellhead protection area, and then what the plan is if that isn't able to be, adjudicated favorably, so.
There are mitigating ways of handling that.
Right, and I believe we understand there's a possibility of a variance that's being pursued to the wellhead protection area, but I'm not sure if that's actually something that can happen.
I haven't heard of that,
Okay.
but variances can be applied for.
Yes.
I don't know whether they would be granted or not. And in this situation, recognize that when you talk about the wellhead protection, the interesting fact here is that there's two neighbors that this impacts.
Mhm.
The one neighbor is already given
Yes.
a wellhead
easement.
protection agreement. The other one, it's less than a quarter of an acre impact,
Mhm.
and it's all uphill from anything that they would build.
Mhm.
And so a wellhead protection, remember, only has to do with, no one can build
Septic there.
leach fields.
Mhm.
You can have a tank, you can have a building in that area, but you can't put a leach field that close to
Oh, well.
a public subdivision well. And
Right.
so it's a pretty small area that's being impacted, not to minimize, there still needs to be some mitigation done to meet the county's rules at this point in time.
Mhm.
And those could be met in other ways if need be.
Okay. Can I ask the Sunrise, I'm sorry, was it David?
David.
Since you're here. Thank you, Marlon. Can you talk to us, and again, Commissioner, jump in, I just think about the things that are popping into my head. Talk to us a little bit about the plan for the water in addition to the current well, or if a current well is not going to be able to satisfactorily meet the requirements of the subdivision as planned. Like what I've read in some of the documentation, when the various water options were considered, there was a one well with a storage tank option or two wells. So we're just interested to know, what the future looks like for the water of the states.
Yeah, aside from the setback requirement there, the existing well was tested with a drawdown of about 1.9 feet. It produced 100 gallons a minute. Based on that, the hydrogeologist thinks that, a 300 or 400 gallon per minute well is possible. That particular well, that could have that production potential. The subdivision itself would use a portion of that. I think its peak hour is rated about 340 gallons a minute, and its peak day is about 200 gallons per minute if you average that over that whole summer day. So the well can meet the needs of the subdivision. Now, DEQ does have some guidelines with regards to, and you're familiar with them, the source capacity and storage. You do need storage to meet your peak day demand, two times your peak day demand, if you've only got one well. In other words, if that well were to go out of service,
Mhm.
you would want to have storage available for that, to cover that time. If you've got multiple wells, then it can be be reduced by the amount of the smaller well. And then, of course, there's also fire storage that is typically incorporated into any storage tank. You want to have that. So that from this project's perspective, as Marlo mentioned, there are some positives there with regard to the development of a water system where this part of the town's water system. Of course, the water would be coming primarily from one of the town's water sources, and potentially this well. It would of course be available, but the water coming into the town's water coming in kind of helps with regards to the storage capacity. All of a sudden, that fire storage, the town's already got fire storage built into your storage system, so the developer wouldn't have to build that fire storage. So what would be occurring there is plant capacity fees and connection fees as it's built out over future decades. Those fees would be coming into the town, and ultimately that storage capacity would ultimately be purchased by the development, but it would be over time rather than all up front, and through the town is how they would approach that. So that's in my view one of the benefits is that both those plant capacity fees and connection fees that are in place are, they're probably better administered through the town long term, and you come up with more of a cohesive water plan for the town. Does that address your
Yeah,
question sufficiently?
kind of, sort of.
What else? What am I lacking there?
I know that, just from meeting with our water utility board, there was a lot of discussion about the plan investment fees, which the town currently has, in addition to our connection fees. The plan investment fees are to be put into a fund to basically expand our water system, right, and to pay for new infrastructure. And because of the very drawn-out phasing of the Mountain States plan right now, there's just concern that, we're not likely to realize plan investment fees for every lot up front. It's by phase. So there's just concern about the impact to the water system based on the length of the, phasing and.
I think the intent is to kind of draw the impact out along with the fees. The fees get drawn out over potentially decades, and the impacts are also drawn out.
I think that, and then the other part then is the fact that the well isn't going to be able to be fully developed currently because of not having that easement from the one property owner. At least that's our understanding, and so it's kind of a tough hurdle to get over, knowing that well might not actually be something that could benefit the town's water system ultimately, to its full capacity anyways.
Yeah, point taken.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have any, sorry,
Go ahead,
do you have any kind of type of time frame when you might be able to give a final answer to the resolution of the wellhead protection area and when the well will be fully developed?
I don't. Ryan Erickson didn't. He primed me a little bit for this. He's a basketball fan, so he's down trying to catch a tournament tonight. But we didn't discuss the timeline on that, but it is certainly a hurdle to be
Gotcha. I can just tell you, it would be extremely helpful if we could get an idea there.
You
But
bet.
I understand you don't have an answer today, so.
Okay.
Can I make just a
Yeah.
comment on that? To answer that, one of the mitigations is you move the well. It's
Right.
about a 60-foot move or less, something like that, and then there would be no question. And so it's a matter of cost adding into this. Yeah, the benefit, again, is fees, and you're exactly right, it's over time, and those fees will probably change over time as the inflationary rates change with all of us. And so that site would need to have some kind of tanks. Now, where I grew up, over in the middle of the part of the state in Big Piney, well, it's not in the middle part, just over the mountain. We have high towers
Yeah.
for fire protection and water storage and et cetera, and you see that throughout the nation. Here in Star Valley, we're very blessed because we have mountains that we can usually go up on and kind of hide our, I don't think you see I don't know of any tower that I've seen in Star Valley, or even a tank, you know, they're usually underground, they're up on a hill.
Right.
And so it's just another thing to be thinking about and as we move forward with this. But yeah, one of the mitigations, if that can't, the developer can't come to an agreement with the landowner, the simplest thing is you just move the well.
Right.
And it's another 60 feet of pipe and you got to drill, but I would guess we'd be in the same aquifer. Dave could probably speak to that. I don't think we're moving that far that would be out of the aquifer, still have a very good well.
Quite often, when we work with Water Development Commission to develop a production well for a municipality, an exploratory well is drilled ahead of time, and then the production well is drilled some distance away, if it's 60 or 100 feet away, and with the understanding that it'll be in the same aquifer.
I think if it ended up having to be moved too, that would impact your layout on your master plan, if you're looking at where that wellhead
I think it
protection would
would,
go.
I don't know that it would affect it, Mayor, very much.
Maybe lot 5
There
is
would be
pretty.
some of the lots to the south, if you could look. Let me
Right.
just bring my map up.
Oh, I have it right here on my.
Well, I know you do, but let me look here at this one. You can see where the circle is,
Yes.
you see that on there? So yeah, it would shift south, and it would, but it wouldn't take out, that means you'd have a house that could be built on lots like 58, 57, 58, and 59, but the leach fields there would have to be farther south.
Right,
So
right. So
it would
maybe
impact it,
adjustment,
yes.
yeah.
I think it's, in my view, it's a very minor impact because it just slides things a little bit farther south.
Commissioners, any questions? Let's have them back at the next meeting too.
I've got another question for you about the engineer septic. There's a lot of questions I'm getting about that, but I understand they've been engineered, and I assume that's been approved by Wyoming DEQ.
It has been.
Is there any documentation that you could provide for us?
For the townhome areas, those will be operated under a UIC permit. There will be plat warnings that enhanced engineered septic systems will be required on all of the residential lots. This particular location is a fortunate location from a septic standpoint. The alluvial is different up there. It's more layers of clay and gravel that vary. So it is favorable from that standpoint. In fact, I think the well up there has very low nitrates,
Yes.
but almost 0.2, I think.
Yeah.
So, which is surprising. It shows that the soils in that area have been favorable with the septics that are present.
So is the for the existing fourplex that's there now, it has a UIC permit already?
It will be operating under UIC.
Okay.
I'm not sure the status of that permit, if it's been, I believe it.
And is it
has
an enhanced or present?
Two things.
Yeah.
One, the first fourplex didn't need a UIC. It was under a regular septic permit because it didn't exceed the 13 bedrooms
Okay.
or the 2,000 gallons a day for effluent going into the ground that a UIC requires. Everything else, adding the next phases, any of the next phases would then kick it over. And so I don't know, Dirk, do you know whether that has been approved? Didn't talk to Ryan on the UIC. I know
No, it's in process.
it's at DEQ, and I think it's processing, and one of the requirements of the county is that the UIC for the whole area be done before we proceed.
Okay, and so the existing ones then just have standard, regular
And
septic?
it
I
does.
believe it's an
No,
enhanced.
they're enhanced
They are
systems. The
enhanced
systems will
systems.
still be the same.
Okay,
It's just that we permitted for the whole UIC for the whole multifamily area.
okay. Are
Correct.
there, just to follow on to Trevor's question, any like engineer drawings of that septic, but you could.
We can give you everything we've
I
submitted
was
to
gonna say,
DEQ.
yeah, so of what, basically for the existing structure, just would help, I think, us too.
There's
Yeah.
an approved permit from the
Yeah.
county that we can get you a copy of that.
If you could provide that, it'll be helpful. Everything
Yeah.
is submitted to DEQ, just for review, would be helpful. I appreciate that.
Right? What else?
I have a question.
Yes.
There was a lot of talk in the last water board meeting about test wells, basically drilled down aquifer to be able to maintain a good idea of the quality of the aquifer water. Can you speak at all to, is that a requirement? Is that something that is a choice? How do you see all that?
UIC permits do typically come with monitoring requirements, and that can take the form of down gradient wells, monitoring wells, and the hydrogeologist helps select the level that those should be at. You're wanting to capture the very top layer of the water table, and so it's a very specific type of well, the monitoring well is, and then there's testing requirements that come along with that monitoring.
So there's not any presently, but that could be something that would be part of the
It'll be part of
future
It would be a
UIC
condition of the
permitting.
UIC.
Okay.
So, just to follow up with his question, are those new test wells, or can they be existing wells that are tested?
Those are generally new test wells, and the reason being, a regular production or drinking water well typically goes down into an aquifer that's at some level. The effluent from your septic systems, as it does go down, if it does reach the water table, it doesn't commingle with the water table. It stays right on top of it and just kind of moves down gradient, staying right on top. So the hydrogeologist targets the perforated casing of the well to intercept that water surface, so that you're getting the best possible representation of that effluent.
And that's just to make sure you're not getting
Yeah.
contaminants into your well.
That's
your
right.
Actual.
Or you use a drinking water well, you might be pulling good
Right.
water that would never show what's moved across on the
Right.
top of the surface.
Where would those be located, on the far western edge of the property
Yeah,
before, or would it be on the property?
Probably on the property. Generally, they like them along the down gradient edge, which would be the western, maybe even the north.
Yeah, a lot of that talk from the water board was in reference to the people who live considerably down gradient
Mhm.
from us.
Yes.
So that's something that may be coming, and, you know, that would affect us here too. I mean, we could be involved with that
Yes,
situation,
yes.
so. Okay, just a couple questions.
That monitoring would take place before anything left the property lines.
Mhm.
So this side of Muddy Stream.
Right. That's a good question. Thank you. Anything else, commissioners?
I would just like to add that I would like to take a good look at that 154 and 152 ordinance and zoning regulation, and as per Mr. Sherbel somewhat suggested, maybe we could take a look at them, amend 1 or 2, make them cohesive, so we're on the same page.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Does anybody want larger?
All right.
Anybody in the audience? Throw them away.
So the,
Are we charged or you guys are?
oh, it's got multiple copies he's passing out. Anyone else? Okay, next item on the agenda is public comment. So if anyone would like to make public comment, if you would please come up to the podium and state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes, and your time to go ahead.
This is the first time I've seen this map. And answer the question, Chief, for me. My name is Lars Robinson, and I live in Plat 20. And I was here the last meeting, and I didn't say anything, I didn't know anything. And then I learned quite a bit when I was here, and I saw where the issues were, and heard a lot tonight from these gentlemen about the water and the traffic. I don't think we're putting enough emphasis on the traffic part. Because I'm looking at this map, and it tells you exactly this. We got this storage area, and once that's all completed, that's gonna increase traffic into there. I saw a boat come out of there today.
So that's actually, not to interrupt you, just, that's not gonna be part of the annexation?
I know, but
Okay.
I'm getting to this because it's
Gotcha.
part of the traffic. Because just to the south of that is Prater Canyon. And ever since that thing's been paved, traffic has increased there. And then today, as I was driving home, I drove the long way and I came up Cedar Creek. And I came up Muddy Stream, up the hill towards the development. And I don't think that that section of road can handle, once we start getting people in there and we get summer traffic here, it's too narrow there, okay? And we have a merge that comes out of Vista, okay? We have a third lane, then it goes into one, and there's a left-hand turn lane going on to Vista. I almost envision that we need to have a continuous lane all the way through to the end of this loop. And nobody's ever mentioned school buses. School buses go in that area at about 7 o'clock. And that's a lot of work traffic. Now, we have different seasons, so the traffic's gonna be different. And once we start getting people there, it's a clear shot down to Freedom, to the Mormon church, which is where a lot of Mormons used to go down there. Okay, so the traffic really needs to be explored. The school buses need to be considered because that's a stop zone and that's a gnarly, it's interesting. I'm not an engineer, but I can tell you it's not smooth. It's gonna be kind of busy. And then I was gonna talk about 2 entrances, but I saw this map and now we do have 2 entrances. So that's not important. Now, I heard this gentleman talking about the water, the well, the engineer. He just mentioned it only needs to move 60 feet. Let's move it 60 feet and be done with it. Okay, I mean, I don't know why we keep doing this, and there's no way to put a variance on that. There's a reason why there's a rule for that. And that needs to be resolved before we even take this place. Now, one of the things last meeting you said, sir, is you were talking to Dirk, I just found out it was his name, and you asked him, what do we get out of the deal? Well, I just witnessed all the man hours that are being spent right here, and all the countless that you guys mentioned before. And I think that it would be a fair approach from our side before we consider annexing this place that they offer us 10 acres for our commercial because we don't have any commercial. And then I heard that we applied for grants for the roads. That means we're begging for money. And what I envision here, and it can change, but imagine we have a daycare there, a convenience store. Our own fire department, we would save $250,000. And we'd be paying somebody else that works in our town. And just, it would give us flexibility because we're landlocked here. And this is gonna be our greatest chance to acquire any extra property. And I think that's a fair price for all the work that this town has done. And it would benefit all of us because then we would be generating tax revenue from actual business rather than, what do you guys call it, planned investment, water hookups? Because there is no water there, no profit there. There's no profit in the property tax. It just reduced it, which is great for me, a lot. And we don't get very much of that. And we don't have a lot of people. So I really believe that we should get a portion for all our efforts here before we even say yes to this. And that would be fair. It doesn't have to be exactly 10 acres, it can be plus or minus, just whatever makes sense according to this map. Like, I don't know, I haven't even really stared at yet. But I kind of envisioned it when I was driving, it's along that tree line. It's off the way, it would be nice if it was right there in the storage area. That would be really cool. And then, so I got this inclination last meeting that the town is paying for things that I believe that the applicant should be paying for, like the engineering report.
That's not correct. So the town is keeping track of engineering costs that we're incurring based on assessing the annexation.
Well, and that brings up another point.
And I'm gonna have to ask you to wrap it up pretty quick.
I know, I'm at the end of my bullet points here, this is
Okay.
the last one. It was really important to talk about the other ones. But I'd really like Bucket List LLC to post their financials, so we see how solvent they are. And, because there's nothing worse than the job ending right in the middle because they run out of money. And then I'd like to see all of our expenses on that website too. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else want to make public comment this evening?
My name is Tom Merrick. I live on the north part of the ranch. I've lived here for 9 years, full-time resident. In my lifetime, I have lived in many different states, from California to Florida. I've experienced good water, bad water, and horrible water. Like when you turn the tap on, it comes out brown. I'm concerned about the water here for the valley. There's been a lot of problems, and I know the town has aggressively attacked the problems. I don't want to see our water system jeopardized in the future in any way, shape, or form. My second concern is basically liability. When the contractor finishes or leaves, the town is going to absorb all of the future liabilities that will exist from that development. We don't know what they are. To me, it's kind of like betting $100 on a $5 winning ticket. That is something that we don't know. We take the risk, but that's what it amounts to, is simply risk management. Now, I have one question, and that is, who made the petition for this development to be associated with the town? Now, obviously, the developer thinks it's beneficial to him for the town to assume the future liabilities. And that's my only real concern.
So the petition was submitted to the town by the developer?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to make public comment this evening? Okay, thank you. Moving on with the agenda, the next item is discussion items, and the first item is any update on the master plan, and have none. I still need to, actually, town administrator and I are getting together tomorrow to work on some of the schedules and tasks associated with the community objectives, so we can finish the rest of that chapter. And then I know Commissioner Stewart is going to be working on some maps to finish off a couple of chapters, and then we're still looking to try and get the entire draft document out sometime in April. And that is about it on the master plan update. Any other questions on that? Okay. All right, any other matters from the commission? Commissioners? Commissioner Albers, nothing? Commissioner Stewart, anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay, that makes it easy. Items to be turned over to town council. Didn't track any, but I know we'll go back through and make sure we're not missing anything. Oh, I guess it's really not to the town council, we just need to move out on documentation for Sunrise, so. Okay, action items for the next meeting. I don't believe we have any of those either from tonight. So, any safe grounds? Right, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
It's been moved by Commissioner Sommerfeld, is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Nalmoff, all in favor? Thank you. We're adjourned at 6:31. Thank you, everybody.